As a person of faith, I have always been fascinated by the mysteries of science and how things work. From the smallest atoms to the vast expanse of the universe, there is so much to discover and explore. And yet, at the same time, there is a deep sense of awe and wonder that comes from contemplating the vastness and complexity of creation. As I reflect on the question of how consciousness emerged from nothingness, I cannot help but see it as a question that encompasses both the mysteries of science and the mysteries of faith. In exploring this question, I am reminded of the words of the psalmist who wrote, "The heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands," Psalm 19:1. Indeed, as we look up at the night sky, we are filled with a sense of wonder and awe at the beauty and majesty of the universe. And yet, we also know that there is so much we do not understand. How did it all come to be? What is the nature of the forces that govern the cosmos? And perhaps most fundamentally, how did life and consciousness emerge from the raw materials of the universe? As a person of faith, I believe that the answer to these questions ultimately lies in the hand of God. As the Apostle Paul wrote, "For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him." Colossians 1:16. From the very beginning, God was the architect of the universe, the master craftsman who brought all things into being. And yet, at the same time, I believe that God created the universe in such a way as to allow us to explore and understand its workings through the tools of science. As the famous scientist and theologian Johannes Kepler once wrote, "The chief aim of all investigations of the external world should be to discover the rational order and harmony which has been imposed on it by God, and which he revealed to us in the language of mathematics." In other words, while we may never fully understand the mysteries of the universe, we can seek to uncover the underlying patterns and structures that give rise to the world we see around us. From the laws of physics to the complexity of life, there is so much we have learned and continue to learn about the workings of the universe. And yet, at the same time, we are reminded that there is always more to discover, more to understand, more to marvel at. So, returning to the question at hand, how did consciousness emerge from nothingness? I believe that the answer lies in the very nature of God's creation. From the tiniest subatomic particles to the vast expanse of the cosmos, everything is interconnected, woven together in a complex and intricate web of relationships. And it is within this web of relationships that consciousness arises. To use a metaphor, we might think of the universe as a great symphony, with each individual note contributing to the overall harmony of the piece. And just as a single note on its own may seem insignificant, when combined with other notes it can give rise to a beautiful and complex melody. Similarly, consciousness may be seen as emerging from the interplay of countless individual components, from the firing of neurons in the brain to the movement of electrons in the cosmos, all working together in a grand symphony of creation. And yet, at the same time, we must also acknowledge the mystery and wonder that lies at the heart of consciousness. As the philosopher William James once wrote, "Consciousness is the one thing in this universe which cannot be got rid of." Despite all our scientific knowledge and understanding, we are still left with the question of what truly sparks consciousness, and what purpose it serves. Is it simply a byproduct of complex biological processes, or is there something deeper, more spiritual at play? As a person of faith who loves science, I find myself constantly pondering this question. On one hand, I am fascinated by the scientific explanations for consciousness, the firing of neurons, the interactions between different regions of the brain, the role of genetics and environment. It is truly amazing to see how our physical bodies and brains work together to create our subjective experiences of the world. But at the same time, I also believe that there is something more to consciousness than just the sum of its physical parts. I believe that there is a spiritual component to our consciousness, a spark of divinity that resides within us and connects us to a greater source of meaning and purpose. Although we share many similarities with other animals, it is the spiritual component within us that sets us apart and grants us unique abilities such as self-awareness, empathy, and creativity. This intangible element is what allows us to go beyond mere survival and shape our environment actively. It gives us the ability to imagine new possibilities, dream, and create art, music, and literature that can touch the hearts and minds of people across cultures and generations. As the Christian writer C.S. Lewis once wrote, "I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else. In other words, for me, faith is not just a matter of blindly accepting a set of doctrines or dogmas, it is a lens through which I view the world, a way of making sense of the complex and mysterious realities of life. So when I contemplate the mystery of consciousness, I do so with both scientific curiosity and spiritual wonder. I am in awe of the intricacies of our physical bodies and brains, but I also sense a deeper meaning and purpose behind our existence. And while I may never fully understand the nature of consciousness, I find comfort in the belief that there is something more to it than just the firing of neurons, that there is a divine spark within each of us that gives our lives meaning and purpose.